Hi guys, first thing I want you to do is your POD. Okay, so this is going over vertex form, which is what we did yesterday. Okay, so to help get you started, remember to find your vertex. It's the opposite of H, and K stays the same. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do this at your seat, and then we'll go over it together. Okay, for the POD, remember your vertex, the opposite of H. So the opposite of the inside, we know is -1, and the outside stays the same. So my vertex is at -1, 4. And if I know the x of my vertex, I know my axis of symmetry, x equals -1, so I have my dashed line going through there. Remember, you want to keep x equals with that because that's saying it is a vertical line. Okay, next to evaluate a point. Remember, you're just picking a number close to the x of your vertex, so close to -1. So I'm going to pick 0. So if I know x is 0, I can plug that in to get y. And again, do you have to use the number I use? No. I mean, you could use a different one. I just like to pick one right beside, and 0 is always easy to plug in. And following my order of operations, remember you want to take care of your exponent first. So you have 1 squared, which is 1, times 2 is 2, plus 4, we know y is 6. So I'm at 0, 6. And if I go to the right one, I can reflect that across my axis of symmetry and go left 1. And draw my nice U for my parabola, keeping the arrows on the end showing it's continuous. Now I can answer the rest of my question. So since it opens up, I know that this point right here is my minimum. I can't get any lower. Okay, and remember to determine why narrow or neither. You're looking at the value of A, so not the sign, just the number. So we're just looking at 2. Okay, we know 2 is greater than 1, which makes that narrow. And my horizontal shift, you're looking at x of your vertex, so -1. So from 0 to get to -1, we know we went left. And my vertical shift, I'm looking at 4, so I went left and up 4 to get to my vertex. So I went left and up. So that's what we did yesterday. So now we've learned graphing in standard form, graphing in vertex form, and today we're going to be learning to graph in intercept form. And just like it says in the name, you're going to be given intercepts. Okay, so looking at your notes, just like standard and vertex, you have plus minus A out front. So the plus minus, if it's positive, tells you it opens up, and if it's negative, tells you it opens down. So that has stayed the same. Okay, same thing with A. If A is greater than 1, we are narrow. If A is less than 1, we are wide. And if A equals 1, we are neither. So that's the same as before also. So your intercepts. Now we look at the parentheses. Your x-intercepts are P and Q. So what's on the inside? So to get P and Q, okay, you're going to set your parentheses equal to 0. Okay, so to get rid of a minus P, you would add. So we know it's the opposite of the inside. Same thing with Q. To get rid of a negative Q, you want to add Q. So when you get your intercepts, you're thinking opposite. So whatever number is inside, you're going to use the opposite. And since it's an x-intercept, you're going to have the number or P, comma 0 and Q, comma 0. And you'll plot those on your x-axis. Okay, your vertex. Remember, your vertex is always the middle of your graph. So to find the middle of these 2 points, you're just going to take P plus Q, and since there's 2 points, you're going to divide it by 2. That's going to give you the x of your vertex. Just like we were doing before, once you know x, plug in x to get y. Okay, so you're just going to take that x value and plug it into your equation like we were doing before, and that will give you your vertex. Remember, if you know your vertex, you know your axis of symmetry. It's just x equals the x of vertex. So we're going to use this to do some examples together. So first thing we want to look at, your value of A. So remember, A is whatever in front of your parentheses. So if we don't have anything in front, what number would be there that would keep it the exact same? A positive 1. So since that's positive, we know it opens up. And if we have a graph that opens up, remember that is a minimum. Okay, wide, narrow, or neither, you're looking at that value out front, so 1. If A equals 1, we know we are neither. And now we can find our intercept. So just like I said at the beginning, your intercepts are the opposite of the inside. So the opposite of positive 1, we know is negative 1, 0. And for my second one, we want the opposite of negative 3. The opposite of negative 3 would be positive 3, 0. So I can plot those points. Okay, and now to find my vertex. Remember, to find your vertex, you're taking x equals, and you're adding negative 1 plus 3, and dividing it by 2 because you have those 2 points. So we know 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. So I know the x of my vertex is 1, which means my line of symmetry, or axis of symmetry, remember they're the same thing, x equals 1. So I can plug that in. So y equals, I have 1 plus 1 times 1 minus 3. Reducing my parentheses, 1 plus 1 we know is 2, and 1 minus 3 is negative 2. So we know 2 times negative 2 gives me negative 4. So I have the vertex of 1, negative 4. And we can draw that line of symmetry going directly through the vertex. And the only thing left to do now is to draw our nice parabola. So our nice U. And remember, you want to keep arrows on the end showing it is continuous. Okay, so one more time, to find our intercepts, all you do is take the opposite of the inside. So the opposite of plus 1, we know is minus 1. The opposite of negative 3 was positive 3. Okay, and if anyone noticed, since that's the middle of my 2 points, you could just count in 1, go in 1, go in another, and find the middle by counting like that, or you can actually use P plus Q and divide by 2. You should get the same thing either way. So now that we did one of these together, I want you to do this one on your own, okay? So remember to find the first three things. You're looking at that value out front. So since we didn't have one, we know that's a positive 1. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do this one at your seat. Okay, so I know that positive 1 out front tells me it opens up. Positive 1, meaning it opens up. Okay, we know that this is my minimum. And if I know A is equal to 1, we are neither. And now to get my intercepts, remember you're looking at the inside of your parentheses. So if I have a negative 2, I know that my intercept would be positive 2, 0. And my second one, if I have a positive 2, I know the opposite of positive 2 is negative 2, 0. So I can plot those 2 points. Okay, and remember to find the vertex, the x of your vertex. There's 2 things you can do. You can either count to the middle, so go in 1, go in another. And we know that the middle is at x equals 0. Okay, just to double check, we can add p plus q, so x equals 2 plus negative 2, divide by 2, 0 divided by any number is 0, which is what we got. Once we know x, we can plug it in. So remember, f of x means the same thing as y. So we could just write y equals, I have 0 minus 2 times 0 plus 2. And reducing the inside, we have negative 2 times 2, which is negative 4. So my vertex is at 0, negative 4. And we know our line of symmetry was x equals 0 coming from my vertex. And now we can just draw our nice parabola. Making sure that's a U and putting our arrows on the end showing it is continuous. Okay, so now I want you to do the next one. Same exact thing, using the number out front, so a negative. We know if there's nothing with that, it's just a negative 1. So I want you to do this one at your seat. Okay, to go over this one, so the negative out front tells me it opens down, and if you have a graph opening down, we know that we have a maximum. Okay, remember to determine wide, narrow, or neither. You're not looking at the plus minus. That tells you if it opens up or down. You are only looking at the 1. So not the sign, just the 1. So if I know A is 1, you are neither. Now I can find my intercepts. So I want to look, the opposite of positive 1, we know is negative 1, 0. And the opposite of positive 5 is negative 5, 0. So I can plot those 2 points right away on my x-axis because they are x-intercepts. And to find my vertex, okay, we can count to the middle or use x equals negative 1 plus negative 5 and divide by 2. So negative 6 divided by 2 we know is negative 3. And if you did it the other way, just to double check, okay, we can check by counting, going in 1, 2, and yes, we are indeed at negative 3 for the middle. So I know my axis of symmetry or line of symmetry, x equals negative 3. We want to draw that all the way through. Now if I know x is negative 3, I can plug that in to get y. So negative 3 plus 1, and then negative 3 plus 5. So taking care of my parentheses first, still dropping my negative. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. Negative 3 plus 5 is positive 2, so I have a negative 1 times negative 2, which gives me 2 times 2. So I took care of this first, dropped down my 2, and I know y is 4. So my vertex, I'm at negative 3, 4. And since I have all 3 points, I can draw my parabola. Making sure I keep those arrows on the end, showing it is continuous. Okay, so now that we've done a couple examples in intercept form, just like when we did vertex form, you can transform your equations back into standard form. Okay, so we are going to distribute. So we know y equals, I have x times x, so I have x squared. Then I have x times negative 5. I'm making sure I take it to both terms inside my second set of parentheses. So minus 5x. That took care of x, so now I'm going with 6. 6 times x, I know is 6x. And 6 times negative 5, I get negative 30. Next, I just want to try to combine. So do I have any other x squareds? No. So I know y equals x squared. But I have negative 5x plus 6x, which gives me positive x minus 30. So now you can transform intercept form into standard. So yesterday we transformed vertex into standard. Now we're changing intercept into standard. So I want you to do this one. Okay, so if it helps, draw the little rainbows there to help you so you remember to take each one. So I want you to do that second one. Okay, so we have x times x. So I know y equals x squared. X times negative 2, so minus 2x. Negative 4 times x, negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. So then we're just looking to combine or simplify. So x squared minus 6x plus 8. Okay, remember when we do notes together, you want to make sure you're filling these out so you have something to look back on. And also when we have our note checks, you do get points for filling all this out. So you want to make sure that you are showing your work and not just writing your answer. Same thing when we did those graphing problems. You want to make sure that you're showing your work. So now if you look, we have a number out front. Okay, so think about if you had y equals 2 times 2 times 3. Okay, to simplify this, you focus on 2, and then you multiply by your last one. So you're going to be doing the same thing. I would focus on your first two. Okay, so we can distribute the negative 3 to both terms inside your first parentheses. Okay, so I want you to do that first. So we have y equals negative 3x plus 3. And then we're just going to drop down x plus 5. Now this looks like the problems we just did. So you're just going to distribute like normal. So negative 3x times x. We have negative 3x squared. Negative 3x times 5. We have negative 15x. 3 times x plus 3x. And 3 times 5, 15. And now, just like before, we are simplifying or combining like terms. So y equals negative 3x squared. If I add these together, I get minus 12x plus 15. Okay, now if you look at this second one, think of your order of operations. Do you multiply first or do you subtract? Right, you want to multiply first. So just like you were doing, I want you to distribute your x plus 1, x plus 2, and at the very end, you'll subtract 8. Okay, so once you distribute, you're going to fill that in here, and then tack on that minus 8 at the end for when you're simplifying. Okay, so if we distribute, we have x times x. I have x squared, x times 2, plus 2x, 1 times x, plus x, 1 times 2, plus 2, and then I have my minus 8. So now to simplify, we have 2x plus x, so y equals, I'm going to drop down my x squared, plus 3x, and then I have 2 minus 8, so minus 6. Okay, so you will be getting the worksheet 4.2 graphing quadratics in Intercept form practice. It's only 8 questions. Okay, this is very important that you listen to this. Okay, 1 through 4 are just like the first 3 problems we did together. So you're going to answer those questions, find your intercepts and your vertex, line of symmetry. Okay, number 4 on your worksheet. Okay, so number 4 on your homework, your vertex will have a fraction. That's the only one. So on number 4, it probably would be a good idea to use the p plus q and divide it by 2 instead of counting to the middle. So number 4, very important, Your vertex will have a fraction. Okay, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are just your distribution. Okay, make sure that you have this done for tomorrow. The sub is going to come around, check, and make sure that it is completed. And if not, you'll lose points, but you can still turn it in to get credit back. So make sure that you do this for homework. If you need to, you can rewatch the video. Okay, that is perfectly fine.